That's everything that's going to go into my backpack. Hey guys, I'm Songbird, and today I'm going to show you, one, how to pack a frameless backpack like this very small Appalachian Ultralight Cuban fiber waterproof backpack. And not only that, but I'm going to show you absolutely everything that I'm going to carry inside of it this summer on my last 600 miles of the Appalachian Trail. As you can see, it isn't a lot of volume, it's not a big hiker gear explosion, but it's still a lot of stuff that has to go into a small roll top bag. And as you probably know, your gear can get heavy, especially food, water, and all of the other necessities. So it's important to know how to pack a bag properly, how much weight you should have in it so that you don't hurt yourself, and so that your load is more comfortable to carry, especially on those long mileage days and with very lightweight frameless backpacks. First of all, a frameless backpack should probably never have more than 15 to 20 pounds in it. Without a frame and a hip belt to transfer that load to your hips, you are going to be feeling every one of those 20 pounds on your shoulders. Keeping your total pack weight under 15 pounds ensures that you are going to get the most comfort in those shoulders all day in your frameless backpack. You can get a frameless backpack with a hip belt. A lot of people will tell you that that's pointless because the backpack doesn't have a frame to transfer the weight to your hips, but that is not true. If you have enough gear in your backpack, especially with a full load of food, you can pack that bag down as tight and as rolled up as possible so that it itself is very solid. Doing that means that when you fasten that hip belt, loosen up on the shoulder straps a little bit, play with your straps, you're going to transfer the load of that pack to the hip belt. Even though your pack is frameless, that doesn't mean that you can't use a hip belt. You can in fact transfer with these little backpacks most of the weight to your hips. Even where you don't have a very packed up load, maybe you don't want to compress your sleeping insulation or your worn insulation very much, or you're later on in the hike and you're not carrying as much food in your bag anymore. Maybe you don't have a lot of extra worn clothing items to fill up the volume inside of that pack. It can still be handy to have a waist belt, especially the ones that are just the nylon webbing. I have found that a little chest strap works perfectly for me, but if you're looking into frameless packs, that's just some of the things you got to think about. Keep the weight down under 15 or 20 pounds. Usually 15 pounds or around there is best with the more fragile bag. Compress that bag down and tighten it up as much as possible to transfer loads to the hip belt even without a frame, where the bag becomes a frame itself. And even where you don't do that, the hip belt and chest strap will help keep that bag from flipping around on you, especially where you're doing more three-point climbing, more technical stuff where it's very steep and you have to use your hands and feet. If you want to see a full discussion of this bag, the Appalachian Ultralight Balloon Pack, you can go ahead and watch the video. I'll link in the description down below. It's been great to me. I really like it, and that video is probably worth checking out if you like gear talk. Likewise, if you want to see all of what's going into my bag today, I have a playlist on my channel that goes through every single one of these items in detail, explaining what it is, how I use it, when I use it, and why it's the best option for me. But getting to the subject of this video, as you can see, this bag has no frame, it has no padding, it is nothing. It is basically a very tough garbage bag with shoulder straps. So one of the problems is when you have a food bag, or if you have bulky, hard plastic items that you carry with you, those items will be felt in your back. There's a couple things you should do when you pack a frameless pack to make sure that you are comfortable carrying those loads as light as they are throughout the long days that you do with these light packs. Step number one is to use a sit pad, a sleeping pad, or any other bulky, thick cushioning item that you have with you. Some of these frameless packs will make use of features on the outside of the pack where your back rests against the back panel. This lets you use your sit pad and have ready access to it throughout the day to sit on it during breaks on the trail. Just keep in mind that with those features where you can attach a sit pad and stuff like that, or where there's any kind of frame on the back, you are adding weight, and you have to ask yourself, do I need that extra comfort and convenience, or is that something that's unnecessary weight for me? Another option is to use a foam sit pad, or a longer version of this, which would be your sleeping pad. And before you put anything else in your bag, you can insert the foam sleeping pad in through the top of the bag to create a foam panel and give your pack some structure on the inside of the pack. As you can see, that foam panel rests nice and flat on the back of the bag, and you can almost see it through this thin fabric. But again, what that's going to do is give you some structure in the pack to pack in front of, towards the outside of the bag, so that everything else that's bulky and pokey isn't going to be bothering you throughout the day. In frameless packs that aren't waterproof and don't have something to protect your gear inside from the sweat from your back, it's pretty important to have a foam pad, and probably even have a compactor bag or something lining the inside of your pack to prevent the sweat from penetrating through this back panel and into your sleeping and worn insulation and all of your extra stuff. It's not fun to open your bag up and find that everything is damp from your nasty sweat. This is not included in my gear list. I've been using it for the video. I'm not sure that I'm going to be bringing it with me this summer. I'm thinking about it since I can stay under SUL limit. Having a nice place to sit down that's clean and dry is super important, and it can really affect your mentality on a hike. I've often sat on top of my backpacks, but in the interest of reducing the wear to my equipment, I think I might switch to something like this. But I'll show you how I pack this on the outside of my pack for easy access, and how I will be bringing it with me if I do decide to on the trail this summer. So if, like me, you are a side sleeper and foam pads aren't always the most comfortable thing, the next option is going to be an inflatable sleeping pad, right? What I'm doing this summer is I've actually upgraded to a full-length regular sleeping pad. You can also see this in that playlist where I go through all of the equipment that I'm bringing with me this summer. But since this is full-length, for the first time I have a pad big enough to fold up and use as my back panel. Now, this isn't the most cushioned of sleeping pads that I could put in here as structure for my pack, and it isn't really going to give a lot of rigidity to my pack, but that little extra bit of cushioning is really going to help insulate my back from all the pokey stuff that may be riding in my food bag. So like that closed cell foam sit pad that I'm sitting on now, or your foam sleeping pad, you're going to be able to slide this into the back of the backpack and use it as that back panel, just like you did with the sit pad. Now with this thin Cuban fiber, you can definitely see that yellow fabric there. This is going to give me a nice bit of cushion between my back and more bulky equipment or bulky food items, peanut butter jars and things that are going to want to give me discomfort on those long days where my bag isn't packed perfectly. As you can see, there's still a lot of room in there for equipment, so let's see what goes in next. Now, the next thing that I normally put in my backpack every morning when I pack it up, or whenever I have to repack my bag after a break, is going to be my food bag. Right now it has no food in it. I'm not going to fly with food on the airplane when I leave to go to DC. I don't think they'll like that very much, so I'm going to fill this with some extra clothing items and stuff to give an idea of the volume that the food would take up. Now, I've managed to squeeze about 5 days of food into this 8-liter food bag before, and it's been perfect for me. The one exception to that was in the 100-mile wilderness, where I had one other 8-liter bag and I had a total of 20 pounds of food with me. But this size food bag is going to be pretty normal on the trail between towns. Usually you're going to have a maximum of 4 days between towns, unless you're in those longer sections like the 100-mile. So the ability to pack 5 days of food and have a little extra food if you want to take a zero in the woods is really nice, but that's about all you need for most of the trail. Now, granted, this would probably weigh 6 pounds or more with this much food in it, depending on what items I decided to bring with me for my food. So I've put a smart water bottle and some stuff in here just to give an idea of what it'll be like with those light but bulky food items that could poke into your back and cause some mild discomfort throughout the day. So the next item that goes into this bag is going to be this packed up food bag. And what I'll do is I'll slide it down right in contact with that pad, and I'll put it all the way down to the bottom. As you can see, we haven't added much bulk to this pack coming out towards the back pocket yet. This 8-liter bag does a pretty good job of keeping everything pretty tightly packed and contained. That's pretty simple. The food bag just kind of slides in and stands up vertically. I know that with bigger food bags and with bigger backpacks, people like to pancake pack, which is where they lay everything flat. That's never been how I do it, but I've seen people do it in the past and it's worked out well for them. But now the problem is, even with that back panel in there, your food bag is going to want to shift around. So despite the fact that this roll top frameless backpack is so narrow, it still needs to be kept from moving around. That leads us to our next step in packing one of these frameless backpacks. What I normally do is I will take my sleeping and worn insulation that I'm not going to be wearing when I'm on the move during the day. First, I'll start with my sleeping insulation. And you're going to pack your bulky items like extra clothing, worn insulation, and sleeping insulation around that food bag to keep it from shifting around during the day. I typically start packing straight down to the middle and then do like a zigzag pattern of packing my insulation in loosely so that it's not all compressed in a ball on one side or the other. As you can see, that does a really nice job of filling out the pack, and I'm able to pack my insulation a lot more nicely. It kind of makes it feel like your insulation takes up a lot less space. Your worn insulation, your sleeping insulation, and your worn clothing, when they're kind of packed into the nooks and crannies of your backpack, they keep everything else from shifting around. And instead of packing them in these stuff sacks and high volume balls where they take up a lot of room inside of the pack, They're filling out the gaps and keeping everything else stable. Now, let's say you have a foam pad on the outside of your backpack and you don't keep it inside of here for your frame of your pack. That's okay, especially where you have a lot of extra clothes, worn insulation, and that nice big sleeping bag or quilt. You can pack that down between your back and any bulky items that are gonna poke your back and give yourself a lot of cushioning and comfort throughout your long days. I only really recommend doing that if you use a pack liner that's fully waterproof, no holes or anything, or if you have a waterproof backpack like this where your sweat is not gonna penetrate through into that insulation and extra clothing. It's very important, especially in the colder months, to have nice dry clothes and sleeping insulation for camp at night. But I will say, when you do wear a frameless pack that's very light, with your sleeping insulation right against your back, it's gonna feel like you're carrying a little pillow all day, and it's really very nice. Okay, so the next thing I always put into my bag is gonna be my ditty sack. I carry all my additional stuff that I'm worried about losing throughout the day in this ditty sack. It won't float around inside of my pack. It's nice and kept safe in here. That means if I need to access like a rain jacket or a wind shirt or a piece of cordage or phone chargers in town, I've got them right here. Also, most important is to know exactly where your toilet paper is during the day. Sometimes you can get a little upset stomach on the trail. If you want to see a full list of what's going into this ditty sack for the rest of my AT hike this summer, you'll find a video about this ditty sack on my playlist for the contents of my pack that I'm bringing with me this summer. So this is the last item that usually goes into my bag, and it will ride right on top of everything else. Any bulky items like phone chargers, my cell phone, or anything pokey or hard plastic, I make sure to rotate the ditty sack so those items are on the front. Just because you have that back panel or your cushiony insulation protecting your back from the items in your pack doesn't mean that you want those items straight against that insulation, because as you move around, you can compress that cushioning and kind of still feel it throughout the day. So now what I'll do is I'll compress it down a little bit, seal it up with the Velcro, press all the air out of it before I roll it, and then roll the bag up as much as I can. Before I clip it here through this back hanging loop that I talk about in the review of this bag, that's pretty much all I use that loop for. But fully packed up, that gives you an idea of the volume. And you kind of get this rounded shape here on these frameless packs where you don't have that foam panel. You'll find that after you pack the bag up and as you wear it during the day, it'll kind of conform to your back and it'll get much more comfortable. You can kind of press down in the middle before you put the bag on, and it'll kind of curve it away from your back. It doesn't always stay for a very long time, but on hotter days, you can kind of tent that fabric out away from your back and kind of give yourself a little bit of air. Most of the time though, you're gonna have this directly on your back. In the colder months, it's kind of nice because this is a very good insulator and it actually keeps you very warm having your backpack on. But in the summer, it can get hot and I sometimes do stop and take breaks just to air my back out. But that said, I have never had any problems with chafing or rubbing, and you get used to it pretty quick, and it's not like you're overheating because all of the rest of your clothes are very light and summer appropriate. So now the remainder of the equipment that I'm carrying with me this summer will actually be carried on the outside of the pack. First, and probably the single most important thing I carry with me is gonna be my Sawyer filter and a smart water bottle. These 1 liter smart water bottles ride very nicely in the side pockets of this balloon pack. And you can see that with the elastic pocket here, this bottle, even when it's full, will ride very nice and close to the pack itself, and it doesn't come up past the top of the pack here, which is nice. It won't snag on things during the day. My clean smart water bottle is gonna ride in the other pocket. This is another liter of carried capacity, giving me 2 total liters. For the AT, I found that 2 1 liter bottles are just about perfect for getting me between the longer distance water sources. I like having 2 liters max. I like to stay hydrated at water sources and then have this to sip along the way. So with this lighter pack, I'm not having to carry 4 or 5 liters of water on longer sections. This second clean water bottle that I use to only have clean filtered water in, and that has the nozzle on it so I can back flush my Sawyer filter in the field, rides in this other pocket. And I'll typically also shove a little scoop down here, which is just the bottom of an empty water bottle that I've cut off, which lets me scoop shallow water. You can see more about that scoop in my Sawyer water filter video. And that gives you an idea of how wide the pack is going to be on your back. Even with the water bottles and the pockets full, it's not gonna extend out past the sides of my back, and it's very low profile and nice. The last 2 items that ride in this backpack out of everything are going to be my bivy sack and my poncho tarp. This Bora Gear bivy is nice and light and packs up really small, but because these 2 items could be wet and dirty from using them as my shelter, I like to keep my bivy sacks, my rain gear, and my tarps and stuff on the outside of my bag in this big outside pocket. That way, if they're dirty, I don't have to worry about them soiling all the other stuff that I try to keep clean and dry in my bag. So first, I'm gonna put the bivy sack in, and I just crunch it up and push it down to the very bottom. Try to make sure that it's as flat and low as possible so that I have room for other items throughout the day. And second is going to be my poncho tarp. Since this is my primary rain gear, I want to be able to throw it on as quickly as possible without having to open my bag and expose the contents that I like to keep nice and dry to the elements. So this poncho tarp goes in as the last item. And then, as you can probably see here, I have a big portion of this pouch that is still available to me. Now, one of the annoying things about having a frameless, like tube roll top backpack is for lunch, I have to pull all that stuff out, but it's nice to have snacks and things ready to go on the outside of my pack throughout the day. Having ready access to those snacks means that I'm eating more frequently, which I have found I really need to do. It gives me a lot more energy throughout the day, and I don't have those lows. I burn a lot of calories. The normal thru hiker is going to burn between 6,000 and 8,000 calories a day hiking on the AT. That means that other hikers like myself are going to want to eat constantly throughout the day. That way we're getting as many calories as possible and our bodies have access to that food all day. Again, like I said earlier, I'm not sure that I'm going to be bringing this, but if I do, my plan is to shove it in this back pocket where I have some extra room. Here I can just shift everything to one side and find a place for it. As a last note before I leave you guys, I want to say that you want to keep those bulky, heavy items as close to your spine, as close to your back as possible. You don't want them to affect your center of gravity, and you don't want to increase the work that you have to do to carry that heavy load throughout the day by having that weight further out on your pack or further up on your pack, making it more unwieldy and hard to carry. Part of the reason I wanted to do this video was to improve on the gear list video that I made in the past. That gear list video had some bad quality audio and it had some bad lighting. So I'm going to go ahead and link that video to this one so people can see not only what I have, but how it's packed and the finished packed volume. So thank you guys for watching the video. I'm glad I got to show you how to pack a frameless pack. I hope it helps you out if you decide to move to a frameless pack in the future, or if you already have one and you're experiencing some discomfort with how your food bag rides against your back or some of the bulkier items in your kit. So guys, that's everything that's riding in my pack, including my Sawyer water filter and water bottles, which I didn't have with me for the last What's in My Pack video. You can see it's very small, and when I put this on my back, it's going to be extremely comfortable and lightweight. So guys, that's all for this video. That's everything that's going to go into my backpack and how I'm going to be carrying it this summer on the AT. I may or may not bring that sit pad. I'm kind of leaning towards bringing it now. But if you like this video, make sure you like and subscribe, and be sure to check out the next videos in the channel. We are now just a few days away from getting back to the trail, where I'm going to be bringing you guys more content from campsites, how I set up my poncho tarp and bivy sack. Hopefully I can get you guys some bad weather hiking videos, so it's not just, hey, look, everyone having fun out on the trail. And for those people out there that don't believe that you can hike with a super ultralight pack set up comfortably, I want to show them that I can very easily, and have in the past, been comfortable and happy out on the trail. So I'm looking forward to doing that, and we'll see you guys in the next video.